What's good, people? Welcome back. Episode 18, I believe now. We've got Mr. Ben Strevens. How are we, mate?
Yes, all good, thank you. You all right?
Yeah, no worries, mate. No worries. We were just talking off air about hair, and obviously it's my second video now with the skinhead. Ben's rocking an all right lid, I guess.
I know, sort of a side part intro. I don't know what it is at the moment. We're all hoping the best we can without going to the hairdressers.
I was going to say, mate. But yeah, thanks for coming on, pal. And your career specifically, I looked into a lot, and it's different in terms of others that I've had on from playing and then straight into management, especially with Eastleigh. But we'll start. I like to ask everyone the same question. All the way back when, where did it all start, mate?
Well, probably watching my dad play when I was really little was probably my first memories of obviously football. He only played Sunday football, stuff like that, but I used to go along and watch him all the time. And then once I was at an age where I remember begging my dad when I was about 8 or 9 years old, can I get into a Sunday team? Eventually got me into a team called Princes Park, which was based over in Copthall, sort of Hendon that way. And I was playing for them basically till I was about 16, but in the meantime got scouted by a few teams and stuff like that. But earliest memories are playing, watching my dad playing, and obviously starting at Princes Park when I was really young.
Was it always kind of back then when you're like 15, 16, like I think we've all been there, whatever level, you can kind of see who the better players are? Did you kind of know that you wanted to go into football? Obviously everyone wants to go into football, but could you see at that level you were maybe a little bit ahead of everyone else?
I don't know really. I think, look, I always wanted to be a footballer. I think in my Sunday team, it was me and another lad called Jordan Deneen. He was really good. He was probably the more standout out of the two out of us. But I just had from a real early age, from 8, 9 years old, right up until I was, coming out of Princes Park, I always used to score goals. I was probably scoring our top goal scorer every single season. So I think that stood out for me. And I got scouted at Watford when I was probably 11 years old, something like that, and I stayed with them till I was about 16. But weirdly, now I'm 6'2", but I actually left Watford because I wasn't big enough. I was always one of the smallest ones in the group. I just had a real spout in the last year of sort of school, going into coming out of, when people are getting YTs and all that sort of stuff. That was my little growth spurt. So I was quite lucky that I got that and ended up going into sort of playing non-league with my friends.
Was it kind of at that time, and I spoke yesterday with someone on the podcast, looking back when you were kind of 16, 15 and looking at kind of the managers that you or coaches you see now coaching 15, 16-year-olds, do you see a massive difference in terms of quality at kind of lower levels? Or because I see so many players now coming from, like you said, like very smaller clubs, didn't maybe go to a big academy, but they always speak about how good the coaches were. Do you think the coaches have kind of got better, or is it just a different time of football?
Yeah, look, I think it's different, to be honest. I think for my Sunday team, I've got to be quite protective because it was my dad and one of the other. So I can't hammer his coaching too much. But Sunday football, it was just more about enjoying it. And when I went to Watford, that was probably the team I was at for 5 or 6 years. I truthfully can't remember what the coaching was like, but it was just an opportunity to train another 2 times a week. And it was different then. We used to, in school holidays, play games and stuff like that. So I would always say I thought I got really good coaching at a younger level. But I certainly know now I've got a 9-year-old and an 11-year-old. My 11-year-old now, I think he was 6 or 7 when he started playing for like a little team. And very quickly, he had every scout you could ever imagine, like asking it. They're just starting younger now and they're trying to get information into him at an early age. I think it's like the muscle memory of trying to get him to do certain movements from a real young age. But it's just the evolution of football, I think. I think it's just we've looked at countries, Germany's, the Holland's, the places like that, Spain's, and we're trying to implement that into our country. I think there's real good times for it. But I would never, ever change playing with my mates on a Sunday. And I think that's the only thing I look at now. I don't want lads to be in a professional environment from the age of 9, 10, and then they hit 16, 17, get released, and then they've got no friends from it, or, what do they do next? I think it's important that we keep them playing with their mates, but also get that good coaching as well. That's my beliefs on it. It might not be everyone's, but that's what I like to see.
No, 100%. And you say, obviously, you were at Watford till 16. I've got down here, obviously, your kind of big stint was at Barnet in 1999, 2006. There was a couple of loans in there. What was that experience like going into, I say, proper football, men's football at that age and for that long time?
Yeah, so there was basically that little lapse I had in between from sort of 16 to 18, 19. I went to a club called Wycombe and Eastleigh. They was in like the Isthmian League Div 3, something like that now. I'm not
Yeah.
sure what league, like a Southern League or something like that. But one of my friends that was slightly older than me was playing down there in the first team, and he said, look, they do like a midweek under 18s league. So I was still playing with mates on a Sunday, started going playing down there midweek for them, and pretty quickly I moved from the youth team into the first team environment, and then started one pre-season. They like proper involved me with the first team, and I got in the team and just started scoring lots of goals at that level, and sort of notified quite a lot of scouts, and I went at trials on all sorts of places. I went on trial and got offered academy from some pretty good teams, but John Steele at Barnet gave me a pro contract. Found out I was doing gardening with my uncle and sort of playing part-time, and stupidly he asked me how much I was on gardening with my uncle, and I told him the truth, and then he said, well, how would you like to be a professional footballer instead of being a gardener for that money? So first lesson was I wish I would have added a bit more money on
maybe a couple more zeros, mate.
Yeah, but I went from, like I'm saying, gardening with my uncle, playing on a Saturday for Wycombe and Eastleigh, which I loved, and was a young lad, but they really treated me well, to being thrust into a League Two team. Fighting my first year there, we was in the playoffs, and it was just around senior boys, learning loads, and getting that opportunity to train full time, which obviously I craved and had always dreamed of.
Is it kind of, I always look at so many players now, like for example, with yourselves in the conference or in kind of League Two, and you get kind of younger boys, like for example, like Michael Antonio, when he was at Tooting and Mitcham, never went to an academy, got offered a position to go to obviously Reading at the time. Do you think so many players at that kind of level, or very similar to yourself, see like these academies like your Spurs, your Chelseas, your Liverpools, all these things, think, oh yeah, I'm going to go there for the badge, when really it's, well, why don't you go out there and play men's football as young as you can? And well, League Two it's not a mugs game. Do you know what I mean?
No, look, I'm proud of the route I've come down, and it's a different route, but I think the grounding you get from being playing non-league and playing at some tricky places, but coming up against proper men from an early age can teach you things that academies can't. Listen, if you've got an opportunity to be in Chelsea's academy or something like that with the players that they're producing over the years, and the opportunity to be at a Premier League level, then it's fantastic. But I literally, when I was at Wingate, I think I went to Chelsea for 2 weeks, Millwall. I ended up having a real long stint at Charlton when they was coming out of the Championship, going into the Premier League, and they offered me YT forms, but it was to go back to playing sort of youth team football, and I'd had a taste of first team football at Wycombe and Eastleigh, albeit at a lower level, and I loved it, and I just felt like going to Barnet, whether I was right or wrong, thinking that I'd be with a chance of getting into the first team, and they had a good. At the time, John Steele was giving lots of sort of younger boys a chance, a lot of non-league boys a chance. And I just felt like if I could go there and hopefully kick on with a bit better coaching, then I might get in the first team there. Whereas at all these other places, I was thinking, I've probably got to fight to get a pro contract to then try and get into a first team environment. So that was the route I went down. But listen, there's all sorts of stories of boys coming out of non-league, but there's also the good stories. I'm an Arsenal fan now. I'm watching Bukayo Saka in the first team. The route he's gone down from being at Highland from 8 or 9 years old. Mason Mount at Chelsea team, players like that. So look, whatever route you take, if you get to where you want to be or where you try to be, and you get paid to play football or to be a full-time footballer, I see that as a massive success. I'm pretty proud of it, and I think anyone, whatever route they go down, I think they'd all take it.
Oh yeah, 100%. Was it kind of, when you went out on a couple of those loans at the beginning of Barnet, and then as you kind of finished at Barnet, was that kind of a hard decision for you to leave, or was it like you wanted to make the next step in your career going forward?
I think at Barnet, I think it was when I went out on loan, it was it just that I'd got used to playing football, and it was really hard for me, even though I was enjoying training through the week. It was really hard that if I weren't in the squad on a Saturday at a home game, sitting watching the game, and when they was going and playing for a Chester away or Chesterfield away, or wherever it was, and I was at home and I weren't involved, it was alien to me. I just wanted to be playing football, so I asked to go out on loan, and they was great with me. And them stints I had at Slough and St Albans and places like that, just got back playing, and actually being on loan at St Albans and scoring lots of goals, I got back into the team at Barnet, and I pretty much stayed in and around the first team from that point. So them loans were great for me. And look, when I eventually left Barnet, if I'm being completely honest, I probably probably should have left a few years earlier. Not in a bad way, but I think when you're at somewhere for 8 years or so, especially when you're a young boy, I think you become a bit, not stale, but I just needed another kick on, and I needed to sort of, not be Ben Strevens that's, been at Barnet for 8 years. I needed to go into another environment again and actually be questioned, trying to impress other managers or players around me. I've become very comfortable at Barnet, and look, it was the best thing I ever did. No disrespect to Barnet, I'd had great times there, but by leaving and going to Crawley for a short spell and then joining the Dagenham and Redbridge, who John Steele was back manager of Dagenham and Redbridge, without that opportunity, I don't think I would have ended up then getting my moves to places like Brentford and stuff like that. I think I'd have become a National League player or potentially a League Two player for the rest of my career. And that little kick on I had and the choice I made was probably the right thing for me. I didn't know that at the time because it was tough to do, but it's probably the best thing that happened to me.
I was going to say, you speak about Brentford, and when I looked in at obviously that Brentford team, that's kind of like when people think of Brentford now, they think of obviously what they are now, but I remember them in the League One and like that kind of Uwe Rosler era, your kind of era. Is it Sam Saunders, that kind of era as well? Yeah. I've got some of the names that they've gone to achieve in the game now that played in that team. You like John Akinde, like what a striker in the EFL. Lewis Grabban has played at some of the biggest clubs. One player I didn't even realise, obviously, is it Wojtek Szczesny? Obviously,
goalkeeper. Yeah.
And out of those players, when you're there, did you kind of see that they would go on to have the career they would have? Or were you not shocked, but like, were they like world beaters at that age, or have they just progressed and developed into next level players?
Yeah, look, I think at Brentford, it was really, I was so happy that I joined Brentford. They won League Two. I was playing in League Two for Dagenham and Redbridge, which probably was my happiest time of my career at Dagenham. And I'd scored quite a lot of goals when I was out of contract, and there was a choice to be made who I was going to join. And Brentford had won League Two the year before. I was really impressed with their manager, Andy Scott. And I went there with Sam Saunders, who you've mentioned from Dagenham. I went there with Danny Foster from Dagenham as well. So we went as like a trio, and it was good that I was going with them boys. But it wasn't anything bad on Andy Scott. He just, we had a lot of players, and we had so many boys that come in on loan through that season, and lots of players within the group. I probably think we ended up using 20 or 30 players that year. So it was tough to really establish yourself as a player yourself. But in that time, like you say, mentioning them names that got brought in, look, Wojciech was the standout out of everyone at the club. He come in on loan from Arsenal. And Tony Roberts, who was the goalkeeper at Dagenham, also coached at Arsenal, and he called me, Sam Saunders and Danny Foster, and basically said, look after him. He's coming out of Arsenal. He's a real good lad, this, that and the other. And he didn't need any looking after. We finished, I think in that League 1 year, we finished either 10th or 11th. And I'm not exaggerating when I say it. Probably he was the difference between us being 6-7 places lower. He was outstanding. Really? You could tell he was going to go on to play for Arsenal. Listen, did I know that he was going to go on to get international caps, play for Arsenal, get a move to Juventus, all that sort of stuff? Look, I don't know if I knew that, but he was exceptional. You could tell he was a real good goalkeeper.
Even obviously with goalkeepers like now, obviously in management, is it kind of at what was he, 19 at the time, I think? Or
yeah, he was only a young boy. Yeah,
was it shocking for you to see? Obviously, I think he played like 40 games that year as well. Like such a young goalkeeper, and being a goalkeeper, you have to be so commanding and stuff like that. Was it kind of something new for you to look at this kind of 19-year-old, at the end of the day, kid that's coming in, mixing it with the best of them in League One? Was it quite a bit of a shock for you?
It was, you know what, and it's just, I don't want to make this sound as if a bad thing, but he had an arrogance about him. He had a self-belief and a confidence that you just can't bring into people. He was playing, bearing in mind, like you said, 19 years old, whatever he was, on loan at Brentford in League One, and he said in front of the boys that I think Fabianski was in goal for Arsenal at the time. And he was like, I'm better than him. And he said, he's playing for Arsenal and he plays for Poland. So basically, I should be in the Arsenal team and I should be in the Polish team. And we were all like laughing, but he was as serious as anything. He had that much belief in himself that he was like, no, I'm better than him. I don't care. Like, I'm at Brentford. And listen, to be fair to him, Fabianski's had an unbelievable career as well. But Wojciech got in at Arsenal, had a great loan move. I think it was to Roma. And now he's number one at Juventus, with Buffon as his backup, so it's
can't be too
in
bad.
Fairness, yeah. Look, he backed it up. there's a fine line between confidence and arrogance, and probably because of the age of him at the time as well, I think he was slightly on the side of arrogant, but no one questioned how good he was. He was unbelievable. He was a great goalie. He was crazy as well, that are nuts. And most goalies that are really good are a little bit different. And he was that, but he was out of a good group of boys with some real, like you're saying, some boys that have ended up playing either consistently League Two, League One, or some into the Championship. He was obviously the standout of the group that we had at that time.
How important, like you said, obviously about character and that kind of self-belief and stuff. Obviously now as a manager, how important do you look at that as a coach and as a manager in terms of having a squad full of arrogant arseholes, but having a group of players that have that self-belief and that desire to improve every day? How important is that for yourself, obviously, on a day-to-day basis?
I think, look, it's the biggest thing now is the rewards that come with a younger age. Look, the only thing I can do now as a 40-year-old guy and ex-player and now a manager is trying to help people and sort of try and point them in the right direction, and it's up for them to take it. And I look back on my career and I go, look, I got to League One. Could I have got any higher? I'm not sure that I could have, but could have I done more at a younger age? I 100% could have. With the infrastructure football clubs have got now, where you've got gyms, you've got sports scientists, you've got all that time in the afternoon where you don't go home and play on your PlayStation. You could be in the gym or practicing your free kicks or working at whatever you're good at. And look, it's a defence mechanism we've all got. If you're real good at finishing and you're practicing your finishing, everyone's going to go, oh, look how good he is at scoring goals. Well, what about if you've not got a very good left foot, or you're not quick, or you're not strong in the gym? It's a bit more embarrassing to go and do a bench press if you're not very strong. But if you do it and you work it and you get better, it's only going to improve you. And I look at some of the young boys I've got now with me, and I'm just trying to point them in the right direction. And I truly believe I've got 2 or 3 lads in my group just because of their work ethic and the way they are just so focused on trying to be the best that they can be. I think they're going to be Football League players, and look, the rewards that come with that now, financially and what they can kick on to is just, listen, if you make it in League One or League Two and you get a move into the Championship or the Premier League now, the greatest respect, if you have a year in the Premier League or a couple of years in the Premier League, you probably ain't going to have to work after. If you play in the National League or you play in League Two without being bad, you're going to have to do something when your career finishes. It ain't going to be enough to for the next 20, 30 years of your life. So, but look, everything's with hindsight. People probably was telling me at 18, 19 years old, work hard, do this, that and the other. You've got to make a choice and you've got to go with it and give it your all. But I certainly think that the young boys have got a chance at all levels now, as long as they put the effort in to do really well for themselves.
That kind of leads me on to, obviously, your time at Wycombe, where I looked at that team again and I've compared all the teams that you've normally played in, or very similar players in your positions. I always call them, and I hope you understand what I mean by this, I always like to look at them and go, you're a proper footballer. So you might not be, in terms of technical ability, Messi, Ronaldo, highest level, but like we've just said, you're the hardest working player on the pitch, you're the hardest working players. You're going to pull people up when they're not pulling their own weight. And obviously that promotion in 2010, 2011 with Wycombe, obviously Gareth Ainsworth was in that team. Talking now about managers, was he the same on the pitch as kind of people maybe perceive him as now on the touchline? Yeah,
and look, I don't think Gareth would say that I'm being rude in saying, I wouldn't say he's probably the most technically gifted player you've ever seen, but I played with him when he was 37, 38, I think he must have been. And if you got in the morning and you went into the gym, Gaz was in there doing pull-ups and got rock music on and full of life. In training, if whatever we was doing, he weren't pulling out of it. He was going full throttle on it. And I played up front for Wycombe and he played right midfield. The majority of time, in the 75th minute, I had to move from being centre forward and go to right midfield because Gaz was going off. But for 75, 80 minutes, he was unbelievable. And you looked at him and you're going, if he's running up and down and he's tackling, and truthfully, he used to fly into tackles and try and head the ball and things like that, you'd be thinking, what's he doing? But it was an actual infectious, God, if he's doing that, how can I not be doing it at 29, 30 years old? If he's got them fitness levels, and look, the career that he's now carved out for himself after turning into a manager that's got a team from in a League 2/League 1 team. I always looked at Wycombe as being always top around League 2, going up into League 1, and then maybe not being quite good enough to stay up there and sort of going yo-yoing back and forth to Wycombe are in the Championship now. Like it's incredible what he's done. But the group we had there, we had a really good group. You know, look at Kevin Betsy's now doing great. He was on the other wing. He's coaching, doing great. Matt Bloomfield is still there, club captain. He's going to go on to be a coach manager at Wycombe. Certainly going to get an opportunity. You know, loads of the boys it was just a real good group. Nicky Ball's now a coach. You know, Gary Waddock was our manager at the time, who I had so much respect for. One of the most people that I enjoy playing for the most. And Dobber, who was his assistant, is now assistant to Gareth Ainsworth. So there's still that core group of people that have, you know, done really well from that team I was in and around at that time.
And you kind of look back now and from those teams, and it sounds like very similar to yourself with Eastleigh at the moment, that you kind of look at, obviously, if you've not got the millions and stuff like this to spend like other, well, I say the Championship, League One above, really, looking at kind of your character and creating an amazing team. Like the people I've had on have all said, like Alan McCormack at Southend at the moment, he said about that Brentford team when he was there. In terms of team cohesion and team kind of environment, that's the most important thing. And especially when you can't just pluck out 20 million on a left back, kind of have that. Is that one of the biggest things as a coach that you try and put over to all your players, that kind of create that environment is the most important thing?
Oh yeah, 100%. At the top level, without being, if you're talking about Man Cities and Liverpools and stuff like that, with a great respect, as good as Burnley's team spirit's going to be and Sheffield United, they're always going to be the best teams. But at any of the lower levels, you know, League One probably down to League Two, National League, money is a big deal. Of course, it's a big deal because it's going to give you the best of the bunch. But if you don't get the right people into your football club, you don't get the right characters, you don't get the right players, and you don't build that team spirit and you know, all of you in it together, you're not going to get any sort of success. And I'm a young manager and still learning and trying to do the best I can. But all I can draw back on is from my experiences as a player and the managers I played for and the teams I've been at. Dagenham and Redbridge, when we won the National League, was back in 2009. Once I think start of the season, they was 66-1 outsiders to win it. Went on to win it, and that was built out of young lads, so much togetherness, team spirit, pushing each other each day. And you know, to be part of that, I was so fortunate that I got signed by John Still to be added into that group, because it just kicked me on as well. And that's my blueprint, really. Them boys that all got promoted together at Dagenham and Redbridge, loads of them went on to play in the Football League, and without being disrespectful to any of us at that time, none of us would have got signed by Football League clubs before we went to Dagenham. It was probably scratching around playing for whoever. So the togetherness, and like you're saying, talking about McCormack there, he had it at Brentford. Any lads that are lucky enough to have promotions in their careers or do well for certain teams will tell you it's when all the group's together and fighting for each other, and you have tricky moments of the season, but you don't have any fragments in the group, and you all stick together and you all, you know, get through it, good and bad as a team. Normally you come out on top come the end of it, and that's all you try. That's all I'm trying to do, build that environment for people to come and enjoy the way they play football, and you know, get around each other, because you're going to lose games of football at every level. It's how you bounce back from it, and when you get on a good run and it builds, it's special to be a part of.
Has it always kind of been in your head you wanted to go into coaching? Obviously, was it from a young age, or was it as we get into the latter years of your kind of career? Have you always wanted to go in the coaching route?
No, listen, if anyone that probably played with me up until about the age of 32, 33, 34, they would have said, is Ben going to go on to be a manager? They would have 100% all said no. I was, I've always been the quiet one in the group, one that don't say too much, that, you know, gets on with my job, does what I'm meant to do. But as I've got older, my plan was to come to Eastleigh and go play part-time. And I just finished I'd done a sports science degree at Roehampton University. So my plan was to probably coincide with going in to be a PE teacher with having the latter years of my career sort of playing part-time. And then once I was obviously not good enough to play part-time anymore, hopefully be in a position where I was established in the school and I was obviously enjoying my job. So it's been a real late thing for me. And I just think I've been quite lucky in terms of my temperament and character. probably suits a lot of what today's managers are. I think 10, 15 years ago, you probably had to be the most vocal or the most hardened or disciplinarian sort of manager. I think now it's changing a lot. Players like to be spoke to differently. You've got to be a lot more understanding. Your management skills have got to be better. And look, I still got lots and lots to learn in terms of coaching and my man management. But I think that's probably given me an okay start to it, is the fact that I can, relate to people and, speak to people quite good on a one-to-one rather than shouting or hollering at people on the touchline or in the dressing room.
Would you always say then, I always like to put this question to everyone, because I have a clear understanding of what my answer would be. If you could pick, you could have the tactical nuance of a Pep, a Klopp, anyone of that level, or you'd have the man management that I look at, of say like a Paul Cook or someone in the EFL type of thing that wouldn't necessarily play the most attractive football, but Ian Holloway, someone like that. Obviously, if you could pick one of the two, what would it be?
I think, being honest, I could never manage, ever aspire to be a Pep Guardiola or a Jurgen Klopp. But I look at, like you're saying, the people that have done really well at the EFL level and the lower levels, and I think they're the ones that I've got to try to be the best I can to be myself, but sort of mould myself on. I was really lucky that I've done one of my coaching badges with the Cowley brothers and see how they worked, and they've managed to get up to the Championship now from being lower down in the National League. But I think a big part of that is, and look, I'm only looking from the inside out, but even with Man City when they went through a bit of a tricky patch, or Liverpool going through a tricky patch, I've never once heard Pep Guardiola or Jurgen Klopp not take full responsibility for the team themselves or come out and blame players. I don't think I've ever heard a Man City player or a Liverpool player, even after leaving the club, that says a bad word about them guys. They are, listen, they're tactical geniuses, but it looks to me like if I was a Man City player or a Liverpool player, I would want to play for Klopp, I'd want to play for Guardiola. Like you're saying, Paul Cook, whether he's been at wherever the clubs he's been at, it looks like people want to play for them guys. And listen, if you've got that relationship with your players, we're not all going to be the tactical geniuses at the top level guys, but if you've got people that really want to play for you, I think that goes a long way. And sometimes that, camaraderie you might have with a player, respect that you have with a player, may be better than sometimes being tactically the greatest guy. If you can't speak to people, you can't communicate with people, or you're aloof and they don't like you, or you're arrogant, they're not going to want to play for you. You could be the most tactical, great guy that's ever been, the best coach that's ever been, but if people don't like you, you're under it. So they've all got these characteristics, right from the top down to the boys that are successful at League Two. And in my league, people want to play for him. And that's I think that's the biggest key as a manager, trying to get people to want to play for you.
And you obviously spoke about the National League we're at the moment, and obviously the world's obviously a bit mad still, and obviously what's happening in the Southern and North League. How, because I understand, because I've got people within the National League that I'm very close to, and they speak about it highly. Just like tell people, how hard is it? Because people always look at National League and it's like, who is it? Oh, Eastleigh versus Stockport, yeah, easy game. How hard actually is it, like, to tell people how hard it actually is to play like a Tuesday, Saturday every single week?
It's relentless, and it's the biggest thing that's happened in the last 10 years at the National League level is that the standards got better, and that more teams are now, well, pretty much 95% of league now is full-time, whereas probably 10 years ago it was probably 60-40, 70-30 in terms of part-time and full-time. So it's become an extension now of the Football League, and it's just that we've got massive football clubs in this level now. You've got Notts County and you've got Stockport and Chesterfield and teams like that. And without being disrespectful, their average fan base or whatever it be will be a lot higher than some teams in League Two and some teams in League One. So we're competing, and it's all we've got at this level is either young lads that need a platform to hopefully kick them on and them to go on to play in the Football League, or you've got real, honest, hard-working lads that majority of the time, come a Saturday and Tuesday, you're not going to know what you're going to get from these boys. And if they have a bad game, it's not because they haven't bothered or they ain't tried. They just had a bit of a bad night. And it's the consistency at this level is slightly different from what draws you from a National League player to a League Two player or a League One player. So, but look, it's been a tough year. All of us, not just in the footballing world, in this whole country and around the world, but we've had to deal with. And this one, like no other, has been challenging to be a manager, certainly, but it's probably been challenging to be players as well, to be part of it this year.
You speak obviously then about young players, giving them a platform. Obviously, the National League, like we see some of the players that have come out, and I remember one off the top of my head. Obviously, Jamie Reid from Torquay scoring ridiculous goals last year for fun, and in the league below, Goodship at Weymouth, now at Southend. How important is it when you have a player? I know, for example, with Eastleigh at the moment, I'm thinking of a player, Ben House, obviously got released by Reading. And is that the one thing when you're trying to get players in at this level, that you kind of give them that belief and say, look, if we can do well here, we can get you straight back up in a selfish way for the player? And is that something that's one of the hardest bits, to balance out the maybe players coming to the end of their career and the young guys dropping down from a top academy, a championship club? What do they do next?
Yeah, look, that's the balance, and finding the right balance between it. I've got Tyrone Barnet, Danny Holland, experienced boys in my group, and they're as important to me as all these young players, because without them, these young players ain't got the people to look to, and to, I can only do so much as a manager on the training pitch, on the grass when they're out there in a game. You need that experience to help these younger boys. So we've tried to mix it where we've got some senior boys that look after these young ones. But it's the biggest thing for me is giving these lads the platform for them to grab it with both hands. Ben House has dropped down from Reading, in the Championship, to play for Eastleigh in the National League, and whether it's next year, the year after, he is 100% going back into the Football League. And whether it be League 2, League 1, back onto the Championship, I don't know where it's going to be. And that's literally because of how hard he works, and because he's humble enough to go, well, I'm not Ben House, I've been at Reading, look, I've got to go and play for Eastleigh now. He's come in and gone, no, I'm going to be the best player for Eastleigh, and then people are going to know about me, and I'm going to kick on again. And I've got him coming down from Reading, but then I've also took lads, from Basingstoke and Hampton and Richmond, Dorchester, Bognor Regis, teams like that. These are all lads as well that just need a platform to move up the level. They've all been at academies when they're younger, and like I did when I ended up going playing for Wingate and Finchley, they've been given an opportunity to now come back in here. And the boy Joe Tomlinson, who we signed from Hungerford in the summer, he's going to go into the Football League. Definitely Ryan Hill, Sam Smart, Dan Smith, Tom Blair. We've got all these younger boys that have got opportunities to go into the Football League, I believe, in the next how many years. Sorry, it's a light in my office.
That's all right.
It's where I haven't moved for how long.
Is it hard to get the balance, like you said, obviously the recruitment process that goes into finding these types of players? How you speak about, obviously, your Ben Houses, your Sam Smart from Basingstoke, obviously, giving them the platform to obviously work hard and get onto it. I always found the lower we go in football, the arrogance is a lot more there in terms of younger players. Like if they're at, I don't know, a certain level and it's not the Football League, they think, I've made it, when respectfully, if you haven't. Is that quite hard then from a recruitment standpoint to get the right player in to, obviously, this, I don't know, you're number 12, it's a hard spot to fill. You're in the National League, you've got to push on, you want to get promotion. Is it hard for that in terms of recruitment when getting those younger players?
Yeah, look, you have to do the best you can to watch them on a regular basis, which we tried to do with a few of the boys last year. It become really tricky because we had identified 4 or 5 lads over the course of last season, and we was going out to watch them, and then we was like, right at the end of the season, we'll get them watched 2-3 times, this, that, and the other, and then all of a sudden, bang, COVID hit. So it's like brought our recruitment process a little bit further forward. But I've got to be honest, and I've got to say that I took over as manager not last year, the year before, and I had a really group of lads, and unfortunately we missed out in the playoffs to get promoted, and I lost 7-8 boys. And my recruitment last summer was a lot to do with trying to fill the voids and the gaps left by players that had left the football club. And I got some things wrong. Openly, I've got some things wrong, and it proved in where we finished in the league, and I didn't feel like we had a good enough year. So 2 things happened that was really important to me last year. I signed Sam Smart from Basingstoke, and I signed Rob Atkinson from Fulham's under-23 squad. Smarty got in the team and has been not regular, but near enough a regular since he's been at the football club. And Rob Atkinson, we signed last summer and sold him to Oxford last January. He was with us 6 months, and it gave me an opening and a bit of an eye-opener to go, if you give these young boys a chance and you give them the right environment, you've got the right people alongside them, there's some gems out there, and give them a chance and they'll do it for you. So my recruitment this summer, I think probably my oldest player I signed this year was Abdullah Baggy from Weymouth, and he was 28. The rest of them have been 20, 21, 22-year-olds, mixing in, like I'm saying, with Danny Holland, Tyrone Barnet, a Joe Partington, a Michael Green, a Jack Payne, with the experienced boys that I've got. They're all still at a real good age to try and help them. And look, they're doing great. And speaking about boys coming out of non-league, you'll see Rob's playing for Oxford now. In the summer, Rob's going to the Premier League, and I can't be more proud of the fact that we give him a chance coming out of Fulham's under 23 to come and play for us. And I could tell from nothing whatsoever to do with my coaching or my assistant's brilliant. Jason knew him from having him at Basingstoke when he was a real young boy. He was the one to tell me to go and sign him. We didn't do anything with him. He was just better than us. And he's gone to Oxford now, and proudly, I can say it, he looks like he's better than Oxford, and it looks like he could be going into certainly a top-end championship team, or from what I'm hearing, he could be joining a Premier League team this summer. And that's going to be amazing to know that we played a little part in his career getting back to where he should be.
I think you've kind of knocked the nail on the head there with the recruitment side of things, and looking at not just kind of, I don't know if you've probably seen the film Moneyball. Yeah, very similar to kind of that. Like, don't look to replace, if you've lost a 20-goal-a-year striker. Well, we look at Torquay, obviously from last year. Jamie Reid scoring, I think 15 league goals, something like that.
Probably more, yeah. They did great for him last year
in the National League. And you look at their team now. I remember scouting them before, and I think that their average height, I think, is probably like 5'9" in terms of their kind of front six. And we're obviously seeing the rewards of kind of personnel changing, not trying to fix 20 goals a season, because to get that, well, it's going to cost you more than probably your transfer budget. But getting in players that can share the goal or have the drive, that will then emulate maybe the 20 goal a season kind of player. And I think, like you said, you looking at the big teams in the National League, and I think, are you doing the kind of that approach, or are you still trying to replace 15 goals a year season players with the same player?
Yeah, look, it's you talking about it that way, but it was when that summer we lost in the playoff semi-final to Salford, I lost Mark Yates, who joined Fylde literally for family reasons. He got 26 assists for me that season. I think it was 26 or maybe 27. Jeez. I lost Paul McCallum to Solihull Moors, who scored 27 goals. So there's two players who I've got to replace, 50, 60 goals between them. Yeah. And it was, I didn't get caught up in it, but it was like going, well, how do you replace that? It's near enough irreplaceable. So you're trying to, the best I could, I was looking at like target players. We went for Tyrone Barnet, Scott Rendell. Could they maybe get 5-10 goals to take it to 20, this, that and the other? Did it in other areas with the midfield and a few of the defenders. And like I'm saying, I got some things wrong last summer. Whereas this year, I didn't really have that. Well, I've got to replace that. It was like, well, how can we be the best that we can be this year? And I looked at it, go in, get some young players in the attacking areas with loads of energy and want to press and want to win the ball back, and are a threat getting at people when they can, when the game gets stretched a little bit and stuff like that. And I look at Sutton are doing particularly well, and Torquay are. If you'd asked me at the start of the season, when I looked at the recruitment of other teams, you look at Chesterfield, Notts County, Solihull Moors, Stockport, their budgets are probably double all of our budgets, and that's not me talking out of turn. They're miles ahead of us. Are they doing their diligent recruitment? Of course they are, because they want to do the best that they can. But we're in a different market to them. They're being able to get boys from top end of the National League or League 2 players, League 1 players, and asking them to come. We've been in a different pool to them, so we've not actually been trying to compete with them guys, which is quite lucky for me, because we wouldn't be able to. We're just trying to give some other boys some opportunities, some senior boys dropping down maybe that you get, or younger boys giving them a platform to try and do the best that they can. But it's a lot more, listen, I'm comfortable doing it because I love working with young players, but it's a lot more risky, because everyone always says you can't, win anything with kids, or when you're going away to a tough team on a Tuesday night, do you want it filled with National League boys that are 27, 28, NOLA level? Of course you do, because they bring that stability and confidence. You know what you're going to get from them every time. But we wasn't in that place. We just given it the chance to young boys. And look, for the most part, we've got loads and loads of hard work ahead. You know, who knows what's going to happen between now and the end of the season. But they're trying their hardest. And I know we're going to lose games and we'll have tricky runs. But I also know they've got hopefully a bit of growth in them to get better as the season goes on as well, I hope.
No, mate, 100%. I like to lead on now to my quick fire questions that I do with everyone. So if I put you on the spot,
okay. That's all right. It's all good.
Rattle the brain really quick.
I'll try.
Best goal you've ever scored?
Oh God, probably playing for Barnet, and it was a local derby against Strevens. I scored an overhead kick, and it's brilliant that I scored it because Martin Allen was my manager at the time. He always bands on about it as well. But somehow, and I do know somehow, Stevenage never released that footage because it was their place. So
no,
talked
you
about
can't
on
even
the
find
previous. They can't find it, so it's a good thing for me because the Barnet fans remember it being a good goal. But as the years have gone on, it was probably just outside the box, but it's turned into. I tell everyone it was about 35 yards out now, and it's got. I can say whatever I want about it now, but that was probably my best goal that I can remember scoring.
Best goal you've ever conceded against, obviously, the team that you're playing in. And you've sat there and gone, whew.
I've said it before, but I was a big Arsenal fan, and we used to play Arsenal every pre-season, and it was if it wasn't a World Cup year or a European Championship year, they used to send down the real big guns. And I remember I'd been brought off in the game, and Dennis Bergkamp scored a free kick, and he was my favourite player. I loved Dennis Bergkamp. I loved the way he played. There's something about him, and he scored a free kick, and I stood up on the bench and started clapping. I'm not so sure my manager was happy about it at the time, but that was my standout. Being on the pitch with him was like a dream for me, and obviously for him scoring, I think it was like 20-25 yards out. He's bent in the top corner, so I joined in the clap like the rest of the fans did.
Jesus, best play you've ever played with? So,
I think in terms of for playing for the level, I think Darren Curry, when I went into Barnet, I had so much. He was sort of a local lad. He looked after me as well, but he had so much unbelievable. If he was quick, 1,000,000% he would have played in the Premier League. Listen, he went on to play for Brighton and Ipswich and a few other teams and made it up to the Championship. So he was special. Left foot or right foot, he could do sort of corner in one side with his left foot, go with the other side and do it with his right foot. He was brilliant. And probably a young player that's gone on to do better now, probably Matt Ritchie, come on loan to Dagenham. I played with him for a season, and you could tell he was going to be a quality player. And he's gone on to play probably 300-400 Premier League games now. But he was an exceptional young player as well. And we talked about Wojciech. Look, he was only on loan. I was only with him a short spell, but he's probably been the one that's gone on to have the biggest
career
in terms of career. But I was only with him a short spell.
Best player you've ever played against on the football pitch?
So I said about them Arsenal boys, but I suppose in terms of an actual proper game, when I was at Barnet, we drew Man United in the I think it was the League Cup. It was at the time, and I didn't know who he was at the time, but PK was playing centre half for Man United. Then, and I'm being honest, I didn't actually think he was particularly that good on the day, but he's gone on to win World Cup, European Championships, God knows, Champions Leagues, this, that and the other. So maybe he's had the last laugh. But he was only a young lad then, didn't know who he was, had no idea. None of us did who he was. And he had a bit of a tough time on the day against one of our forwards. He was a rash and he was really getting after him, but didn't know at the time. But look at the career he's had, he's unbelievable.
I was going to say, mate, what do we know? Jesus Christ.
Yeah, of course.
Favourite moment as a manager that you've experienced?
Probably the playoff eliminator when we went to Wrexham and winning that in extra time. Wrexham had the best home form all season. We would sort of gone under the radar, made it into the playoffs and going in there. And my captain Danny Holland scored a sidewinder volley from outside the box in the 100-something minute, and we managed to hold on for a 1-0 win. And strangely, a couple of days later, we went to Salford and lost on penalties. But I don't think I've been as proud as a team than I was on that day. The energy levels that the boys played with to play another 120 minutes extra time against Salford, who were big spenders at the time and had fantastic players. And we literally went all the way with them, ended up losing on penalties, which was obviously a gutter. But them two moments, it's hard to separate how proud I was. Wrexham, because we won, obviously, is the one that I'm proud of. But they couldn't have done any more in that Salford game, and it's my one probably regret that we didn't win that game and go on to Wembley, but I could have been more proud of them on that day.
Why coaching and why management?
Look, why not? That's been my motto. Listen, I don't know whether I'm going to be a manager or a coach for another 10 games or I end up doing it another 10, 20 years or whatever. But I've been, football's been my life since I left school. And like I'm saying, I went into work doing gardening, and I love my dad to bits. My dad's been a butcher his whole life. And look, it's pressurised and it's tough at times. Real tough is getting up at 3, 4, 5, 6 in the morning or whatever, going working a proper hard day's graft and not getting home to see your family till 7, 8 at the night time. I get to go and be on a football training pitch, try and help young boys get better. Yeah, it's pressurised, and yeah, you come under criticism when you lose games, but can't moan at anyone for it. That's the route I've chose to go down. So listen, if I keep doing this for another 10 years or I last another 10 games, I'm extremely proud to be a manager. And like I'm saying, my backup plan's always been to be a PE teacher. So if I end up not making it as a manager and I go off to work in a school, I'm going to look back and be proud that I was a manager for, listen, I've made 100 games now for Eastleigh. If someone had said that to me, I'd never thought I'd have been 100 games as a manager. So I'm pretty proud of where I've got to, and whatever comes next, I'll deal with as it comes.
Oh, 100%, mate. And my last question, one bit of advice, you'd give to any coach out there that has never played at a high level to make it in management?
I don't care where people have what levels they played at, because I played with some lads that have probably played at a lot higher levels, and that doesn't mean they're going to go on go be a good coach. Be a good person. Try to learn as much as you can. Try and speak to people. Try to go in and watch sessions and see how people do it, because there's no secret formula to this, to being a manager or a coach. It's literally work hard, try and be as humble as you can be, and hold your hands up when you get things wrong. Because the more honest you are with players, they're better, they're more respected. Because if they make a mistake, if they've got a manager going, look, I probably messed up today, or I've not done good in coaching. So I think it's just be open to criticising yourself. Look at yourself and go, what can I do better or good? But I truthfully think, if you can get in, watch sessions, learn off people, because any sessions that I put on now for the boys, hopefully they enjoy them. I don't know if they do, but hopefully they enjoy them. Ain't because I'm some sort of tactical genius or I've made that session up. It's because Gary Waddock put that session on for me when I was at Wycombe, or John Still did it for me when I was at Dagenham, or Martin Allen did it for me when I was at Barnet. You're learning off people all the time, and surround yourself with good people. I'm doing okay in my job at the moment. I know I can get a lot better, but if I didn't have Jason Bristow as my assistant manager helping me every single day, or Ross Flitney as my goalkeeper coach, or my physios and things like that, I think that's the biggest thing. People think that they can do it all by themselves. No, be open to getting people around you that potentially could be better than you at their job, because that's only going to make you better as a manager as well. So work hard, learn off people, try and surround yourself with people that inspire you to do better. And like I'm saying, be open enough to go, if a player has a bad game, that you've had a bad game, but also open enough to be, as a coach, go, I might have got that session wrong, or I might have managed you wrongly there, and I think you get the respect of your players.
Well, that's the rest of my questions done, mate, and I think that was probably the best answer we've probably had on that question.
Good.
But no, mate, cheers for coming on. I hope everyone enjoyed it, if you're watching or listening. If you do get time as well to pop down to Eastleigh when we're allowed fans back, please do. It's a nice ground. It's not too far from where I am. It's not too far from probably a lot of people in the south. So yeah, go check them out. Obviously they're doing well, and hopefully they'll push on. But yeah, guys, make sure we like, subscribe, and yeah, mate, cheers for coming on.
No worries, Joseph. Thanks for having me on. I enjoyed it. Thank you very much, mate.